Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Jonathan, so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I appreciate it. So today, as per usual, we are going to start with a game. I just love for this to be fun. I personalize these games for every guest, so I hope you enjoy it. But if you don't tell me, it'll make me super upset. Just kidding. But this game is called Creative Director Hot Seat. So I'm here to ask you the
Huh?
questions that people want to ask you, but are so afraid for whatever reason. I'm just kidding. They're probably not.
Let's do it.
But are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. The first one is, since I've seen that you have experience in both, agency or classroom. If you had to pick one that you could only do for the next 5 years or so, would you lead a creative team in an agency, or would you teach the next generations of creatives? Which one would you prefer to do if you had to pick one?
Oh, classroom in a heartbeat. In a
Yeah.
heartbeat. I think I think with my experience and like the years I've been in the industry, I've had more experience in the agency than less classroom. But I've always wanted to teach, and I think like giving back is just so like important and such a good deed for me. I think it's like that it's more fulfilling, I think. Yes.
Oh, I completely understand that. I think that there is I teaching is something that you get so much out of because you get to see like a direct impact, whereas like I
Yeah.
think in other scenarios sometimes you don't, even if you are being helpful. And I just think that is such like a fun opportunity, and it really takes like not everyone there's so many people that are so good at what they do but they don't give back by like teaching or being able to help people get to where they are, and I think that that's just gatekeeping. We should all be teaching.
Yeah. But I mean, in the agency, you basically have the classroom there. Like,
Yeah, you're right.
as a creative director, part of your responsibility is to, kind of like help the next wave of creatives to become creative directors and surpass creative directors as well. So I think like within the agency, you have both the classroom and also the other responsibilities as well. But for me, there's something like wholehearted about like just focusing completely on the education. That was actually my minor, in education. So I always knew from like college that I wanted to return any and all experience that I gained. So yeah.
It's good on you for wanting to do that. I think that there is a lot of like very talented people out there that don't kind of give back in that way. I think I'm seeing a lot more of it now because of like thought leadership being more emphasized, which I love to see. And I'm happy that we've kind of like opened that environment specifically in the
Yeah.
agency world to like be much less like secretive of like
Yep.
this is mine, and because I don't want someone else to do it, because that would make them competition. I think that that's just like not a faith in your own work.
Yeah. I sometimes say like, um in the day to day in the industry, let's say that in advertising, there's a lot of like self-taught things that you learn in the day to day. And I think like the way to self improve and also like make the industry better is just for ourselves to kind of like share our own knowledge with folks around us and be like, hey, this is what it's like. And for example, the other day, I had someone from the team being promoted from senior to ACD, and they asked me a simple question that I was like, wow, nobody has asked that before. Why haven't I asked that before? It's like, okay, now that I'm going into a more managerial position, um, what do I have to do? What's the difference from this position to this position, and yeah, you got key like responsibilities, but from reporting into someone to becoming a manager, it's like such a big jump. And I don't think a lot of folks take like training or kind of talk about it
It
of
just
like
happens.
it just happens.
Yeah.
It's like you're just suddenly a manager. You're like, how did I get here, and how am I managing so many people? And that's kind of like the self-taught things that I think like where the classroom appears within the day-to-day that I think is nice. But um yeah, I really enjoy when there's like the dedicated classroom. You're like, okay, we're gonna talk about things, and we're gonna learn here. Yeah.
No, I completely understand that. I think that there's so many things that you kind of like, especially if you're used to being in a position or you've been in a position for a while, that you don't really like you see as almost like muscle memory. Like it's
Right.
something that you don't even question as like something that could be taught almost. Like it's just something that's
Yeah.
ingrained into you. It's like knowing your left from your right. I always give that example because my parents did not teach me my left from my right because they just like it never occurred to them like
Right.
because it's
Right. Exactly.
so I always had trouble with it my whole life because like I learned way too late what it was. I was just guessing for the longest time. and and I just think like there's so many things like that though, like
Yeah.
especially in the
Yeah.
workforce that people don't, it just doesn't occur to them that they have to teach because it's something they've been doing for so long. And so
Yep.
questions like that are really really amazing, like to kind of contextualize how you work in the future when like people are promoted on your team and like don't like they you might have different expectations for them of like, oh, you don't understand this because you've
Right.
just been moved.
Right. 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 And sometimes it's like, and sometimes no. I think it's the nature of our industry of like the speed. Right. We're always trying to go faster, produce more for less. And so with all that speed, I think it's very important to pause and learn and still learn while you're like in the thick of it, right? Because it's like go go go, but we also gotta like take a beat and be like, wait a minute, okay, how do I improve this process, or like is this the best way to do this, or like are there other resources that could make me do this better and quicker. Like I always say, like I don't know, the Adobe suite and stuff like that, whether you're working on like I don't know, Photoshop, Illustrator, or even like AIs now, like there's such um fast turning tools right now that you're like, well, before it took me, I don't know, an hour to do this, but now it's like a click of a button and and it gets it done. And then sometimes it just takes you you know a moment to be like, okay, let me learn this, let me see some like tutorials and and uh get to speed with things, get updated basically. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a lot of it there's so many things happening at once that especially with updates and everything like that, especially around AI, it's like moving so rapidly that it's
Yeah.
really hard to keep up sometimes. That like it's really great to promote this environment of discussion and like asking, being like
Mhm.
comfortable asking questions too, on top of your point. It's just like because there's so many things that you don't see that like you could be teaching or like you could be explaining better or whatever it may be
Yeah.
because you're used to it. And there also could be a bunch of things that you don't even know about that someone else is doing. Like I think that um there's this dynamic sometimes between, because of hierarchy in different places, that like you can't learn from someone who is like you're managing or whatever
Mm.
it may be, and that's like totally not true, especially if if someone that you're managing is younger than you, like they might be in a different place of the internet than you, they might be learning about things that like you might
Right.
not know about too, and like there's so many opportunities for that. So I think that's something that's really like vital for people to recognize.
Mm. Agree.
So we already went into a whole tangent about the game, so I'll give you one more segment within the game, and then we'll
Okay.
just go right into all of our conversation.
Okay.
So, okay. Speaking of the trying to do more on a budget, this one is called Budget versus Brilliance. So, okay, you have a really good idea for a campaign, but it has a very low budget. I know I'm being very vague. What is there an area that you specifically look at to compromise on first? Like, is there something that you think of or like you see as a trend that is something that you should focus on first when looking at a budget or trying to like minimize something for a creative project?
Um, I think, um, and maybe this is it stays on the surface, this answer, but I think like what shouldn't be compromised is the idea.
Mm,
You know, when thinking about budget, I think it's definitely a challenge to think about like, think big with little budget, but it is possible, and we've seen it. We've seen um, things that just like a simple tweet that whatever goes viral and stuff like that. So for sure, it's definitely possible to do things that are thumb stopping or like that are buzzworthy or newsworthy. But I think what never should be compromised is the idea. The idea shouldn't be thought as like, okay, this could be, you know, uh, different tiers because of the budget. I think where the tiers come in is like how it comes to life, right? And the idea could come to life in different ways, right? It's like, for example, if you're going to film something, you have an idea, and this could be translated also into like the film industry, just as advertising. It's like you have an idea, you have a story you want to tell, but you have this amount of budget. So you're like, okay, how can I best tell this story with the budget I have? Right. And be honest with yourself, because I think you'll do a disjustice to yourself and to the idea if you try to produce it in a way that if you don't have the means to produce it that way, uh, at the end of the day what you're gonna do is just lose that idea.
yeah.
And maybe that's what the idea needs. Maybe the idea needs to, like, maybe it needs to age and be like, you know what, the client is not the moment right now for this idea, or this production is not ready for this right now. Um and have that understanding and say like, okay, maybe I hold this idea for when the budget is ready. And you just, I guess it's a very personal thing. Like, if you have an idea and you know that it needs this type of budget, um then I would say don't sacrifice it. Don't like lowball it and be like, okay, we have little budget and we're just gonna do it with what we have and let it go easily like that. No, I think you got to be very like mindful and be like, okay, is this idea still good with little budget? And I think it is possible. You know what I mean? So it's just, yes, for me it's in the production side, not in the idea side, where I try to see where to do sacrifices. Let's say that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really fair point to be made because I think a lot of people will try to create an idea with like an unrealistic budget sometimes,
Mhm.
and then that kind of like crushes the idea, if that makes sense,
Right.
because you have like this vision and then it can not be done. So
Mhm.
maybe the idea then needs to be another idea. It doesn't mean that there's not other great solutions for whatever you're trying to solve, or whatever projection or goal that you're trying to reach. But I agree with you that you shouldn't like sacrifice the idea for the budget. You should just think of it like the idea can be used for another plan.
Right.
Like but you shouldn't create like a, for lack of better phrasing, like a half-assed version of your idea
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
because the budget is small. You should have another idea for that budget.
For example, sometimes we've done like follow-up campaigns. For example, we have an idea and it's like an overarching or an umbrella idea or a wrapper idea, what you want to call it, just like the big idea. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, right now we don't have the budget to do this execution,
Mhm.
but we could start with something smaller that builds up to this. And you're like,
Mhm.
okay, we still keep the idea alive and we build towards maybe a follow-up campaign where we could do something bigger. So that's where I mean to be mindful of, like, to not let the idea per se suffer.
Yeah.
If it could come to life later on, maybe you hold on to when the money is around, you know.
Yeah, that's a great way of kind of solving, or like looking to solve that problem too, because I mean like that also, I think that a lot of the time, well, I should just say like, I don't know if I should say a lot of the time, but like sometimes there are campaigns that are only getting so much funding because like it's a test almost to the company, like, or the
Mm-hmm.
business, like, and so having that smaller version in order to fit that budget can work towards the bigger version if they see success from that first scenario. So that's like kind of a win-win situation in which like you might get to execute the full idea if like they now have maybe more faith in you and your team or whatever it may be from
Exactly.
seeing the evidence from the first time.
Yep. Yep. For sure. For sure. That's like a completely different, like, also layer of like building a relationship with a client and stuff like that. I think that for sure is going to open up more possibilities, and with trust comes also more possibilities to doing bigger things. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's definitely something that needs to be established with the client no matter what. So it's good to like also use it to build that trust, and on top of it be able to keep that idea in the back of your head to like maybe implement if everything goes according to plan.
Hmm.
So we were talking about earlier the idea of like what you're able to learn and also teach, whether in the agency world or in your more formal like educational experience. I'm curious um about what you've felt since more formally teaching, like what students have been able to teach you, like what kinds of things you've learned from that experience. I feel like they kind of like, as a teacher it kind of like goes hand in hand of like being able to learn and also teach. So I'd just love to know your perspective on that.
Yeah, yeah. I think um the biggest things I've learned, let's say like that, from either students or or other creatives that report into me. I think the first thing that comes to mind is work life balance. I think first thing that comes to mind. I think eh, this industry is super competitive. Requires a lot of time, and I think uh, we could get really passionate and like lost in it. Let's say like that.
Mhm.
I, for one, I'm super passionate. This is my you know day to day, but also even I consider even my hobby. And so um, you know hearing the students and kind of like um, the new generation, let's say like that, of creatives coming in, where they also bring inspirations from their hobbies outside, and they have other creative outlets outside and things like that. I think it's great. And so it brings a different, let's say that, like a different spark, where you're bringing things from, let's say that, from the real world. And so it's just a different approach of how to also find inspirations outside. And yeah, I think like the work to life balance is definitely one. And from, let's say like that, my experience in the industry, and kind of like my past, uh, work life balance wasn't something that was very present.
Mhm.
And so, um, everything from like speaking about like mental health and all that, just like speaking about yourself, and just like us being very honest that we're humans, I think is beautiful and necessary. It's like, why weren't we talking about this? I don't know. When I started in the industry and stuff like that, it was just more like, um, you're here to work, and that's it. You know what I mean? And so I think just like the sense of honesty that now we have in the work environment, I think is awesome. And I think that's definitely because of the new generation coming in. So yeah, definitely that. Just it sounds simple, but it's a huge factor that I think is going to take us in the right direction. Just being more humans.
Oh, I completely agree with you, and I think that is a really great takeaway. I think that I it really kills me to see the perspective of that, like the new generation of like the new generation of the workforce is like lazy, or like all of these things that I hear every once in a while. I really don't think that overall that's true. I do think that it's just a shift in mindset of like what is fair to a human to like take on.
Right.
Um and I do see that as a positive trajectory for work in general, and I hope that like I hope that that generation is able to change people's minds.
Yeah.
Because like I do think that it is something that is really important for like all of your life. Like work is the usually the biggest part of most people's lives,
Yeah.
at least like
Yeah.
where time is concerned, regardless of whether it's balanced or not. And I really do think that not considering your life outside of work, or not considering how work affects your life, or how your life affects work even, is not really fair. Like this complete utter separation that has always kind of been instilled, I feel like, in the past, is not really fair to like how we work. Like
Mhm.
brains don't just stop and focus on work, and then once work is over they just focus on life. Like it's not like, what's that show
Right.
that what is it, Succession, is that what it is?
Oh
Wait,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
but it's not like that. Like that's not how human beings work. So why are we treating those things like they're two completely separate things?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so yeah, I really hope that I see a positive change and mindset shift with like the younger generations. I truly do not think that they are lazier as a
No,
whole.
no.
I think they just like are not accepting what they don't deserve.
I
I
th-
think that makes sense.
yeah, totally aligned with that. And the other thing which I think is like awesome is that there are now more resources than ever for people to be creative. And so being in a creative space and creative industry, it's like at the end of the day, um, if you got like a hobby outside and stuff like that, you got people creating content, and telling their story. um, that's like that's something that, before wasn't possible. And kind of like the way that it also opens up people to be more creative, I think that's great. Because what we do is I think is very like, from inside. It's almost like very personal when we bring out an idea or we put out a design out there. It's
Yeah,
something very personal.
it's vulnerable
It's a
too.
creation that comes from inside. And so once you do it more and more, I think you become more accustomed to kind of like opening up and putting your creations out there.
Yeah,
And with all the resources that are out there right now, I think people uh, are more open to being creative than they were before.
I completely agree, and I hope that this changes a lot of things. I feel like with work life balance, so that's like my hope with everything. But like having your experience in both academia and working in agencies, if you could redesign like how creative education works as like a rule, I guess, to better prepare students for like real world scenarios, what do you think you would change? Or like maybe rather change what you feel like you do, whereas it might differ from what like the normal or like the way that it's normally done to do that.
Um, I don't know, to be honest. Like, I think it's pretty solid. The only place where I think there should be um more like, I think like not classes or education, but maybe like seminars and stuff like that, is in the managerial stage. That
Hmm.
one for sure, I think, is one that um again, like we were talking about early on, it's something that you're just like, it happens and suddenly you're a manager, right? And
Yeah.
so um I think that is the space where it's like a lot of managers get to a managerial position without being prepared to be managers,
Mhm.
to be quite honest. And so it's not like when you're a junior designer and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, I don't know what to do. And you have a manager that is like, okay, I could hold your hand and tell you a little bit how this works and how the space works. And right, every agency and every client is different and they have their own dynamics. And but it's very different when you're managing people, like when you have people's careers, like almost basically in your hands, where it's your responsibility to help them grow. um that's a different ball game. And so I do believe that um there should be, even from like the college standpoint and stuff like that, in the creative space, to be more conversation or a course, or I don't know, something more dedicated to managerial skills.
Yeah.
Um, so that is the one particular thing that I find that I was like, after being manager for several years, somebody once asked me that, and I was like, that's crazy. I've never heard that question before, and that makes all the sense in the world. We're just like going, and we've never stopped. Like, yeah, people should be prepared to be managers.
Yeah,
And
that is usually the normal
so
trajectory for
yeah,
creative at some point.
yep,
No, that's a really great point to be made because I think that yeah, like the normal like hierarchy of things goes, and I would like tack on to this of like that course in general, like I don't even know, like business school, like anything like
right,
that as well, because it really is there are people that I don't even think that they should be managers because
Right.
they just don't feel like they're good leaders, or like they do better when they're being told what they're like supposed to be doing, or like being managed, because like that makes them feel more structured or whatever it may be. But I don't think that that necessarily means that there's like people like, yeah, there may be better people like personality inclined to be better managers or leaders, but I
Mm.
don't think that that means that people who are um not used to it are just ill fit to be that. I think everyone is capable of
Yeah.
being a good manager. I think it's just like teaching them skills to make them better. And I think that unfortunately that is like a lack of like people see it as, okay, this is the trajectory, like I'm here and then I eventually will lead a team because that's like how more responsibilities and that's how the hierarchy of work works. But that's different. Like it's different than being told what to do every day, or like knowing what your expectations are today, to like setting them for other people. Like that is a
Exactly.
completely different, and that is not a normal trajectory for like mindset. Like that's something that you completely have to switch around.
Yeah, yeah. It is a big moment of shift. Definitely. Like, yes, there's different types of like managing, right? Like just like the way you get your job done or the way you execute things, just like that. There's multiple ways that, you know, people could manage, and you put your own style into it, or your own way into it. But also it's a point of pivot where you probably were perfecting your skill before that most of your life, and now it's time to kind of like put your pencil down, and you're not going to be so much in the the trenches, and it's now time to like oversee. And it's almost like grabbing something completely new, because let's say that, you know, you were an art director or copywriter. You were developing, you know, your writing skills or your designing skills, or um for the most part of your career. And now suddenly it's a shift where now you have to like oversee these things rather than like do them. And it's that phase of like letting go, right? Of like trusting
Yeah.
your trusting your team, and not doing everything yourself, and like the whole like micromanagement and all this, like being careful of like how to how to prepare and how to like guide your team uh to success is definitely a different ball game. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like that is really hard for some people to do. Like even not necessarily like that they're bad leaders or anything. Like some people just like are used to being in the trenches. So now like
Right.
they're when they're managing someone else or like other people, they're thinking like, okay, everyone's doing this the same way that I am. So like they almost see a lot of times I think they see a problem in that things aren't being done the same way or
Yeah.
like the same process that they do. So like and then that goes into micromanaging and all these different things, but it's like they're different people with different creative processes and they might work differently for them. So it's just like getting that exposure of understanding that earlier on is really helpful, but not something that many people have access to learning until they're in that position.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think there is like, I feel like it's frowned upon if somebody doesn't want to become a manager, you know? And I think like it shouldn't, that shouldn't happen. Like I know some folks in the industry that they were just like, nah, that's not for me. I just want to keep on being in the trenches. I love this. And they stood in like the same position for years
Yeah.
because they knew they loved that, and that's what they wanted. They were happy in that position, and they didn't want to manage people. They didn't want to and I think, you know, I think there should be more like openness to that, you know, and be just like very transparent with people, like, you know, do you really want to become a manager or not? You know, where do you see yourself? Um and and for it not to be frowned, for people to just be like, nah, it's not for me.
No, I'll do you one better with that too. I think that there is this like general societal whatever you want to call it dynamic of that like you have to go up in order to
Hmm.
like be be considered successful or good at what you do. And
Right.
I think that's like when you look at, I keep calling it a hierarchy, but when you look at that, like that's like, again, considered the normal trajectory. But it's like, if different responsibilities or a different dynamic comes with like the job above yours, then like, and that doesn't seem like it works with who you are as a person, like why is that expected of you? Like
Right. Right.
I think that that's almost like I hope that also with this newer generation that like that's something that is maybe better understood, because there are
Mhm.
people that truly would not be good at managing a team. Like they may have like a sporadic brain or like whatever it may be, but they're really good at what they do. And like that
Exactly.
doesn't mean that maybe they shouldn't be paid more because they've been there for so long. Like that doesn't, like then they're not going up or whatever it may be. Like that doesn't mean all of this stuff. And like there is like this taboo around like staying stagnant, but I don't
Mhm.
think that that means that you're not good at what you do. Like that means like maybe you're so good at what you do that maybe you shouldn't be in this other kind of position because that's not how your brain works. So like that wouldn't
Right.
be optimal for like everyone else involved.
Yep. Yep. Totally agree.
And that's just something that is very, I see just often taboo. So but I will leave it at that. We are definitely over time, but it's just, it has been fabulous talking to you. I think like you're picking your brain is very fun. And I think we both tend to ramble, so it's kind of enjoyable because we just go on these different tangents. But I think they were all really, really helpful to our audience. So, Jonathan, thank you so, so much for joining me today. This was like genuinely such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And anytime, I enjoy talking a lot, as you can see. So I'm here uh, whenever you all want. Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
And also, thank you everyone for watching. If you would also maybe like to talk to Jonathan, I don't know if this is okay for me to leave up to them, but
Yeah, for sure.
information will be in the description. Obviously, not your email or anything. We're not going to expose you, but his LinkedIn, just like different, so that you guys, if you do have any questions about advice or anything, I'm sure Jonathan would be happy to help you guys.
Yep.
And just thank you so so much again, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Thank you.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.